All right, well, welcome everybody to our February 26th meeting, and welcome to those online. Good to see you and hope you can hear us okay and see us okay. Excellent, all right. We'll do acknowledgement of country and then we'll start working through our agenda for today. Mid-Murray Council would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land, the Nadgeri, Noel, Nanguku, Narkat, Narrandjeri and Paramek peoples on the Mid-Murray land and waters. It's upon their ancestral lands and waters that the Mid-Murray Council meets and operates, and Council pays respect to elders, past and present, and their spiritual beliefs that are continuing importance for those First Nations people of today. Council further acknowledges the contributions and important roles the First Nations people continue to play within the community, and we extend that respect to any peoples in attendance here today. Now, we do have, I guess, apologies from Bill and from Mayor Simone.
And also Greg Sterling.
And Greg Sterling.
Yeah.
And I guess from CEO Ben. Very good. Now, and thanks to Mel, the minutes of the 25 November 25 meeting have been circulated. So could I, if you've all had a chance, you all received and had a chance to look through those minutes, could I please have a mover and a seconder that those minutes are a reasonable capture of the last meeting? Thanks, Don. Appreciate that. And once, twice. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. All right. All those in favour, raise your hands, please.
Well, I just did have a query on it.
Agree. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, 8.1, was that motion actually carried because it wasn't actually voted on in the meeting? And I did look on the YouTube recording after that to make sure I did get it right, but
Yeah.
should that be listed as carried or not?
Okay. What's the item itself?
And it was a motion that came out of quickly that in question without notice. The Dark Sky recommended to council that the words "and skies" be added to the acknowledgement of country so that it reads as it is upon their ancestral lands, waters and skies for all council purposes, subject to the necessary engagement of the First Nations people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gary was going to follow up with that, I believe.
Yeah, so it was moved and seconded, but we didn't, what we believe is it wasn't actually carried in terms of a formal vote.
Oh,
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So in terms of accepting minutes of the meeting, it'd probably be worth noting that it was without the express clearance of that item. And then if we were to do it, we probably would have to move that second today.
That's
all right. What if we list that for other matters at the end of the meeting?
general business, maybe?
General business.
Yeah.
General business, we'll add it at that stage. Thanks, councillor Ross. Appreciate that. Good pick up. All right. So with that correction, which we'll get to, still got, so we'll move on to seconder, and everyone's happy for the rest of the minutes to move on that. Show of hands. Yep. All right. Thank you very much. That's agreed to. All right. Declaration of interest. Do we have any members of any declaration of interest today? Very good. We have no deputations, which takes us to item 7.1, Dark Sky Strategy and Action Plan Progress Report. And I might kick across to Jared, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Speak to this. Thank you.
Assume everyone has read it. Does anyone have any major or any issues or concerns, questions relating to the work plan? I'm happy to walk through it if you like, speak to it.
So just a question for me. So attachment to correspondence from Department of Prime Industries and Regions. So that was, unfortunately, we weren't successful with that application.
Yes.
So we'll be reapplying in the next round. Is it up again? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know when the next round will be open. We're also looking at Sustainable Communities Fund as well, which Gary and Dave are speaking with.
And whether we actually submit for the code amendment is still subject. This year, Dave and I literally just met today. There are potentially 4 projects that sort of probably meet criteria that council would potentially put an application in for. So the code amendment is one of those 4.
Yeah.
But in terms of fitting the criteria, we've sort of been very clear. So we are meeting with our grant writer next week. to see whether they feel which project meets the criteria more. So it may or may not be.
All
Yeah, it did seem pretty clear that although the same, the previous one didn't meet the requirements, so I wouldn't want to see people go to a lot of work for something that they're not probably going to take seriously, so.
Yeah, it was very disappointing because we had the support of Perth's regional manager with it. They had the support of the board, or not the board, but the panel, the initial panel to get it actually through the process. They were very supportive of it. And then, yeah, getting it. So it was, yeah, very disappointing through all of that process.
Did they say what criteria it didn't meet?
They just said that it was, they didn't see that it fitted the, didn't demonstrate strong alignment with the program.
So it might have been that, in terms of, the projects that did align, it was probably, more of a, 80, 90% alignment, whereas ours might be, 60 to 70% alignment. It could be that variable.
And if it's oversubscribed, then that's.
And then it's oversubscribed, exactly right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Are there any questions or comments for Joe? Anyone?
I don't know if it's a question that's the code amendment thing seems to have hit a brick wall. I have a suggestion that might be a way of working around that. And it's through Standards Australia. I went to the Dark Sky conference last year in Melbourne, and I met a guy called George Spinas, who is the engagement manager at Standard Australia. And he said that anyone can suggest a new standard for their consideration. And what I'm thinking is that perhaps there's a way of creating a standard for a dark sky place that could be in those documents. So we can actually say, well, this is the Australian standard. And if you're in the dark sky region, you need to comply with it. It's another way of sort of looking at the same thing.
So
I don't know if it's useful, but
no. So I actually put the question to our planning and building officers, because in the correspondence that we see somewhere, refer to Australian Standard 4282 of 2023, the control of obstructive effects of outdoor lighting. Now, and I asked the question, how does that play out in our assessment process? And the simple answer, it doesn't. Neither the building code nor the planning design code actually refer to that Australian standard.
But what they were saying is that you can create a new standard that does.
But you would still require the building code and the planning design code to actually call that standard up. And so the fact that an existing standard is not actually referenced in our system is because in the correspondence that we received, it said here that planning and building authorities have regard to that standard. But I said in here in South Australia, it's actually not called up. So while there's the existence of that standard, there's no requirement for officers to actually have regard to it because it's not referenced by our requirements. So we'd have to get the government to actually have that standard acknowledged.
How do we do that?
So I think it's a case of following up in terms of our request to the Minister for the code amendment is potentially looking at how we can request that that standard be referenced in both the building code and the planning design code. So I think that's an action that we can take on board in progressing. Because as you may recall, we did get a consultant to do a bit of work for us in terms of all the regulatory functions that we could probably pull in terms of levers. So this may be now an additional one that we can potentially look at.
I personally be a little careful about the Standards Association route. Sounds like a good idea. However, I was on a Standards Association committee to do with water quality monitoring. And I don't think I've seen anything go much slower than them. Now, they may have improved since I've retired, but I mean, I'm, you know, what I'm like, I'm keen to get things done quickly. But putting effort into that might disappoint us, I think. It's probably better to go directly through, you know, with the lobbying that's being done. Especially if you know, if you manage to extract something out of them in a couple of years, I think that would be ambitious. But then find that the bureaucrats in our state government don't recognise it anyway. Yeah, that's a waste of time. And that's just my personal experience. It was a thought. I don't want to be negative.
But so the core issue remains that to get a design code amendment, it's about a 40,000 plus-ish project for someone to prepare it, a consultant to prepare it for council and lodge it.
Well, 40 to 80,
40 to 80, okay.
effectively,
Yeah.
depending on the scope.
Yeah.
And as outlined in the report, there are quite a number of investigations that have been recommended to us that we would have to do as part of that code amendment. And the last cost estimate that we got for a code amendment was around about $70,000. Now, with that scope of investigations, it would be worth now revisiting that price to see what would be in scope for that pricing. So the key elements in that is that you make sure what's the problem and defining that problem, and then obviously what the investigations that are needed to demonstrate that the code amendment will address that problem. I think in terms of the other regulatory controls, you know, this standard, if we are able to have it referenced, would go a long way to addressing some of our concerns that we have, you know, in appropriate lighting. So I think we do try potentially ask the minister, because that will probably then negate the need, hopefully, for us to do a code amendment ourselves. Might be just the sake of the commission or the minister then making, you know, due reference in the actual codes for standard. So that itself probably doesn't need a full code amendment process.
Okay.
So that's something we can explore with the department.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Well, try.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. If there's any further questions or comments, if there's not, there is a recommendation on page 4. The Dark Sky Strategy and Action Plan Progress Report on the Dark Sky Committee agenda of 24 February 26 be received. Can I have a move and a second? Thanks, Councillor Ross. Second. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Are there any questions or comments before we go to a vote on that? No? All right. All those in favour? All right. Thanks, Councillor Georgia. Beautiful. All right. That's passed. We'll move along. And the next item on.
13.
13, thank you. All right, so this we're pretty familiar with is the process of the incorporation of a new entity to take over from the Section 41 committee. Again, I'll hand across to Jared. If you want to talk to this item, please.
So, administration drafted the constitution, which we have had legal review. Melody Jones came back with some amendments, which are outlined here in the report. There's a copy. There's 2 copies of that constitution, one in clean and one in track changes, so people can see what they have come up with. Essentially, I can now lodge that draft, that constitution with CBS now. Don't need to go back to council, but it's there. and we can get that process going through that. So, if, does anyone have any particular question?
Councillor Ross.
On page 49, this one's a typo, grounds for termination of director, the second dot point, which starts as becomes bankrupt, it's only got her creditors, it should be his or her, yeah. And then another question was, on page 52, which is page, come on, done the wrong one, page 12 on the constitution, it says about notice of the annual general meeting shall be given to all members at least 14 days prior, whereas for special general meetings, it's not less than 21, and general meetings is not less than 21. So I'm just wondering whether the annual general meetings notice should be not less than 21 days to have it all uniform for the night. That's just a question.
Take that on board and ask that before we submit.
Good pick up.
There's a couple of things on, International Darts Fair Association was mentioned several times. That's not its current name. Needs to be updated to Darts Sky International.
What page is that on?
There are several
It's
places.
okay, it's on the way through, yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the first reference there, Chris? Do you know?
Where is it? I'm sorry, I've lost the place. Anyway, a fundamental place would probably work on that.
I found a couple of typos too, but I wasn't going to mention them because I thought that, you know.
That's right, I might as well mention
Too
it.
small, but on page 45, under section 4 on powers, first dot point, acquire, hold, deal with and dispose of, that could be any real or instead of any,
Oh, okay, yep.
right? And then on the next page, down under rights and obligations, there's just a space required between the board and the and, it's the second line of the second paragraph. I mean, I didn't mind, I think, I thought you put them in
What was
to
that
make
one,
sure
Don?
we read it.
What was that one you just said?
Under members,
Mhm.
section 5, rights and obligations. And missing the first line, the second paragraph, there should be board and
There's a space.
there should be a space.
Yes,
between
yes.
two words.
Suppose we turn off track changes.
Wait,
I just have a sort of general question about the name of it, actually. This is, Dark Sky, I'm sorry, I'm a bit scattered at the moment. I think it should be the International Dark Sky Reserve, Rivermurray International Dark Sky Reserve Association or whatever, rather than, or the word reserve doesn't appear in it at all. It's missing out.
But the reserve is the area, this is the body that looks after the area, so the board.
Yes, but the name of it at the moment doesn't include the word reserve. It's the Rivermurray International Dark Sky Board.
That was
And what I'm saying is it should be called the
Makes sense.
Rivermurray International Dark Sky Reserve.
So again, I think when we lodge the paperwork with CBS, we can seek advice as to whether that should or shouldn't be included. I sort of get your point, but I get Councillor Shook's point, because this is the board that is going to be responsible for the reserve. So we can ask that question when we lodge the paperwork. Yeah. They may actually deem the entire heading or name of the board is inappropriate. I don't know.
From what I've
So-
heard, they're a fairly fussy bunch.
Yeah.
Not directly related to this, but that discussion leads to the point that was raised at Chris's committee meeting last time. Andrew Cole, who helps Chris with the, particularly with the monitoring data for annual report, made the observation that they've got a section in there for us to just let them know if there's been any changes to the boundaries. And he said that implies that they don't need to, you don't need to get approval to change the boundaries. Then he listed a couple of other players, Cowpam area and one other, more or less they're not far away from Midway Council area. And he says, why don't we just declare the whole Midmurray Council area as part of the reserve? And he says he doesn't think the International Darts Golf would be.
It wouldn't require any extra paperwork. It's just.
You just say that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I only raise that because if that's right, then if the adjacent areas are separately approved as reserves, you could incorporate more together and the one administrative system might be able to manage them. So I don't know how you handle it in relation to this, and also I'm not sure what council's attitude might be to that, but it was an interesting observation.
I think in terms of any extension to the reserve area, that's probably for a later day. I think in terms of our priority at the moment is to have this board established, and then that board will ultimately be responsible for how the future direction of the reserve goes, and if it wishes to expand the area, that's saying that new board.
I just wanted you to know, but I understand.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just wanted
I'm
to
fully
know
aware.
this discussion came up, and the councillor's point about managing I'll call changing the name of this to include reserve, if the reserve changes too, you know, there's sort of connotations about that.
Well, at the end of the day, you know, we're setting up a governing body that's responsible for the reserve. Now, if that reserve changes, then that's irrelevant to the naming of the board.
Okay,
In
I
my
know
view.
about it now anyway, but it's a possibility.
Yeah.
Because at the end of
The
the day,
reason I suggested reserve is because it is a particular place, but if you just have Murray International Dark Sky, what does that mean? What is a dark sky board?
The board is relevant.
but similarly,
What is it?
we call it the Northern and York Landscape Board. You know, we don't call it Northern York Landscape Area Board. So,
Yeah, I know, but any,
yeah,
Oh,
it's
we'll see what
semantics
they
in terms
say,
of
but-
what you call it.
I felt it was like, this is a board to manage the reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
no, it's,
that's
yeah,
what
I can see where you're coming from, Chris, definitely.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Like I
what,
said, we've modeled on landscape boards, catchment boards
Sure.
and the like where you don't reference the area.
Uh-huh.
yeah, so I just want to acknowledge Councillor Victoria, welcome to the meeting. Good to see you. All right.
Hi, how you doing, guys? Sorry, I was a little bit late. It was Auntie Jenny's birthday today, so I had to go over there this morning and wish her well. She's heading up the Riverland for a few days to see family up there, so I do apologise. I was a little bit late today, but hi, how are we all?
Good on you. No,
Thanks.
that's good.
Just under the definitions as well, you've got reserve or RMIDSR means the River Murray International Dark Sky Reserve as accredited by the International Dark Sky Association.
Yes, yeah.
You would assume that that's covered.
Yeah, and that's one of the places where it's not been, it's Dark Sky International now.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the makeup of the board, I would like to suggest that Mid-Murray Landcare should nominate someone to be on the board, because that's where all this started.
There's a history there.
And it's been a strong, important part of its
Yes.
creation and ongoing reporting in particular.
Yes, so in terms of composition, we've obviously indicated 6 elected directors and 2 appointed directors. So for that virtue, they could be one or the other as a representative.
Yeah, I'd just like it to be specifically Nick Landcare, if that's possible.
Well, we had that conversation at the last meeting about the constitutional, but yes, and it was felt that, rather than specifying individual organisations, otherwise we could use, maybe someone with this qualification, someone with that qualification, that's where the skills matrix is to self-support.
Mid-Murray Landcare is the responsible entity for doing the annual report.
Yes.
It's got a very, very specific role.
Yeah. So again, I think the purposes of this, we suggested that the new board could then determine how it wishes to acknowledge its membership.
Well, you'll always be on there, so you've got both caps on.
Yes, but when I'm not on it anymore, I still believe that.
So if the committee's of the view that we should have that requirement, the question then in terms of item 6, are we suggesting therefore that it's 5 elected directors and then having the additional 1 appointed by the Landcare group? Because I would suggest that if you I'm on page 48 of the agenda, page 8 of the Constitution, item 6, which is the composition of the board. So at the moment, it's 6 elected, 2 appointed and 1 appointed director from the council. So if you want to have the same by the Landcare committee, I would suggest that you want to probably reduce the number of appointed directors to 5.
Yeah, I would assume that you would include it in that number somewhere.
Because I don't think you want to be a board of more than 9.
No.
Too unwieldy.
It's a good point, Chris, because you are the entity that does take the dark sky readings. And you are, I guess, the logical go-to local environmental based group that would have an interest.
And somehow or other, Mid-Murray Landcare needs the support of this board and to do the ongoing readings and all of that.
So again, one of the things that we spoke about was that the Landcare group could be established as one of the committees under the board. So it would continue to operate as one of those committees. So at the moment, certain committees are required and mandatory, like finance, audit, and risk. But we did put there a scientific advisory committee.
Yeah.
But then there's any other committee deemed appropriate by the board. So by virtue of that, the board could establish the Landcare committee as a committee of this board.
And I just want to say in regards to that as well as Landcare, sorry, I don't know if you can hear me out there, but also for obviously Aboriginal groups to be involved in obviously the, creation of this board too, I think is very important for the, for all elements of protecting country. And if there's, consultation groups like with Landcare working together in partnership, obviously with like the First Nation elder groups locally.
Thanks, councillor. Sorry, a truck rolled past us and you started to speak then. So I think we got the gist of what you said. So I think it's a good point. Thanks, councillor.
So Chris, really the question is, if you're looking specifically for the Landcare to be on the board, then you would have to change item 6. I suppose the other question mark is what would happen if by chance the Landcare group folded? Just putting it out there as a
thought the board could deal with it at the time.
So, because obviously, you can have a future-proof constitution, and there's always subject to change when a board can review its constitution. So, if we want to add item D, we can put that to the CPS, sorry. But I would recommend that we then reduce it from 5 elected directors, 6 to 5 elected directors.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
we'll make that change before we submit it.
Thank you, that's good. It has been a massive amount of work for a very, very small group.
So the key thing to know that once this gets approved by CBS, then we'll start moving through the transition for this committee to become the board. So those existing members, will transition across to be board directors, and then we'll look at the transitional arrangements for the appointed directors as well. So,
Just one other quick, two other interlinked questions is how would this board actually administer itself?
So
who looks after the minutes, for example, or the.
Yep. So for the interim, council would continue to provide administrative support until such time as the board has, the resources, the capacity to be self-managing. So Jared, as the executive officer, also as the public officer,
Yes.
and may continue to provide some of that administrative support, and that's something that would be negotiated between the board and council.
What's the council's attitude at the moment?
Ask
Is there
him
a
next
general
term,
sort of view?
I might not be here.
Well, I think, fundamentally that the council's position has been to move towards an independent board, managing the reserve. Council will continue to be represented on the board by virtue of the appointed director. So council will have, still a vested interest in the future ongoings. But ultimately, its core business is not to run the reserve or the future planetarium observatory.
Absolutely.
But we will definitely have, a continued interest from a tourism perspective, from an economic development perspective, because ultimately, we're going to, I would say we would, ride the laurels of the dark sky, because in terms of an asset for the region, it's probably one of the most significant assets council the region could have. So, from a tourism and economic development perspective, yes, we will definitely have a strong interest in the future, management of the reserve, but we just won't have that direct responsibility.
Yeah.
So,
Wilson.
No, I understand that completely.
We've been working obviously with the land care and this committee to push forward with the work plan, to achieve the stuff that this committee has identified 5 years ago, roughly, or more. And so, I think that the big turning point is the establishment of this board. And obviously we don't want to sort of go down the path of setting up a board and see it fail either. And that's why it's critical that, we do get the right people long term sitting on that board where there's connections with potential for future investment around the reserve and those assets within it. We've done the skills matrix. Hopefully it will then, as hopefully the governor will still hold that function. So that's another conversation piece we've got to reignite this year, is that when we get to the point of, and get this board up and running, like I said, the transition is probably this committee being the first board, but come the first AGM, we want to be able to probably track some of those people to put their hands up.
All right. So Mel or Sharon?
Well, I guess I'm trying to think through how I can see it happening, and I've been involved with Chris since the start, and it's just a bit of amazing to me how many years have ticked over for getting the accreditation was a big achievement. There's a lot of work done to do that, but since then, it's been slow going. So I guess I'm just trying to think if this committee is the board for a period of time. I don't know how long it's going to be, a year or only a matter of months or two, or what? But if it's a year, then I don't know what resources and capabilities are going to change from what's happened in the past few years. So if we had if we immediately kicked into gear with some new additions to the system, that people who have got better leverage with those who have got the money to support some of these actions, then you might see something happen quicker. That's all. Those things are just going around in my mind. I think if we were going to go a whole year with this group still, if you look at the past, any indication what's happening in the future, we won't get much further advanced by the end of that. I mean, we spent a lot of time on things like this, and we've got the lights, which are good, you know, but
Well, I beg to differ, I think, in terms of what's been achieved in the last few years. I mean, while Jared and I are the only resources that are, you know, available to this project, you know, the council has committed our time, and it's based on our availability.
I'm not saying what, there's a lot of effort gone in, but in terms of tourism attractions to the area relating to the dark sky, what's on the ground? I mean,
But that's not necessarily our role to do that. You know, there's private investment, you know, like Kelly, who, you know, obviously run tours around the dark sky. There are tourist accommodation people who are putting development applications in to take advantage of the dark sky. So there is investment happening out there. We just don't necessarily see it, and it's not on the ground yet. So those two applications, you know, that have been approved by the assessment panel, are just waiting for investment to actually build.
I'm not trying to be too critical of things. I know things like that business with the copyright, you know, stuff with Western Australia. And there's a lot of effort went in there to can that
And
idea.
a lot of money,
And-
the rate base.
Yeah. I know, I'm not being negative about that, but I'm thinking that the point you made is a great asset to the place. This has always been my feeling, and that's why I've been working on it, is that it seems to me there's an opportunity to add some economic opportunity into the region that's not different from marginal arid agriculture and a bit of jet skis up the River Murray, and into something else that might bring a different type of individual in who might stay longer and invest more. And we don't see much of that.
And I think council is driving that. It's just taken time and money. I mean, council has not put a cent other than the legal costs, and everything else has been driven by Jared and I in terms of time and effort. And the fact that we've got the RPP funding now to do the tourist precinct planning project. You know, so we didn't have to do the dark skies part of that project, but we have chosen to do that. So, you know, to criticise that the things are moving slowly, I don't think is justified, because I do think, you know, things are moving as quick as resources allow. If we didn't have funding restrictions, we probably could have moved far quicker than we have, yes. But we're doing it based on what resources council is able to provide in the limited scope of what is our core business.
Yeah.
And this is not core business.
And then I might add, I reckon, the original intention of making a board, incorporated board, was that the board would have increased access to grant funding that council can't get. So, and if you get that, then you can push it on quicker.
Which is, you know, part of the brand strategy while we had all that developed, because that then all makes up all that portion as well, and that's all included in the RPP now as well, so it's.
So things are progressing, but they'll never be, you know, at probably the pace that we would all like. I mean, you know, it would have been great to have the code amendment completed by now, but you know, you've got government that's got priorities on housing, so they're not prioritising code amendments that have no housing directive. That's the reality of government, you know. And if, you know, we had the funding to do the code amendment, we would initiate the code amendment. But having said all that, to your point, this committee winds up in November with the local government elections. So it ends.
So that's a good, so what you're answering is that it doesn't have to wait 12 months before we get some new blood in with maybe some better ideas. And
So the simple fact is, the Section 41 committee ceases to exist in November.
Right.
So, and it's up to the new council to decide whether it wishes to re-establish the 41 committee. Our pathway is to have this board in place before that happens.
Yeah.
So before caretaker, effectively, to have the board in place with this committee transition to that board. So there's continuation of the work that this committee has done. Otherwise, it effectively will stop in November.
So I think part of that new board is, let's get some new blood.
Yep.
Look for, you know, high-powered people who can give us, you know, for example, space agency people or whoever it may be, to give us some new impetus. And I think that's part of what we're
Yep,
doing.
it is very much it. I mean, there was two pathways. One is literally stop this committee and establish a new board, but it seemed easier to do the transition by moving this committee into the board. And then within the first year, you identify people to replace board members as appropriate. So the fact that we've gone with elected and appointed directors, the fact that you can appoint somebody who has space agency skills or scientific skills or engagement skills, that's up to the board to decide what it thinks it needs to get that organisation moving. Now, most boards move through a phase, you know, and the first phase is really the governance phase, you know, to get all that sort of process and procedure established. And then you set up the next board that's probably more strategic. Then you get another board that's more operationally focused. That's up to the board to decide. You look at government, you know, councils and committees and all that. That's generally how they've gone through their establishment phase. So the chair of the committee, you know, might be someone who's very good in governance, but come the third term of the board, it might be someone who's very good at tourism operation. It's up to the board.
Also, when does caretaker kick in?
I'm going to say late August, September.
Oh, okay. So really, reports going up to council can't be any later than that in general.
So like I said, we intend to launch this constitution, let's say this week,
Sure.
element of timing. Assuming that there's no major changes to the constitution based on their review, then it will get lodged and we Gazette. I can't remember now. And then we would have to put that. We'd have to work out the process whether it goes to council to formally transition committee to board to work that out.
So in terms of mechanics here, you've had several suggestions made about changes. So is it your intention to bring it back to the main meeting, the final?
No, our intention is now to get this
That's
into
right. That makes
CBS because they'll review it anyway.
Yeah.
So they might have other recommended changes. They might not agree with elements of what we put in there. So
That's fine.
we might as well go through that process now and actually see what they say. And then if they're comfortable with the constitution as presented, then we'll proceed with that.
Okay. That makes, given times of the essence.
Yeah, no, so that was the one thing we were very clear. And that's why it was brought back as an information item only because, you know, we've already got the resolution of council to progress this.
Yeah.
So it was just to give you an informed where we're at.
24 weeks roughly. So Okay. Are there any further comments as to the content of the draft constitution or the make around the table?
Is there any provision in there to, it sounds stupid, but we have talked about getting funding from other places that I didn't see it actually as part of the board's sort of role that they could seek funding.
It's basically in the powers.
Okay.
Invest its money in security, acquire, deal with personal property, borrow money.
But yeah, that's not the same as getting funding. Hopefully not.
But that is a standard sort of powers clause, and any incorporated body apply for funding.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, it's more an operational matter for the board.
Okay.
What the board is.
Gotta work out how to get an income first.
Yeah,
Big problem.
that's right.
All right. Well, there's a recommendation on page 14 from memory, so I'm way down from there. So can I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation, please?
I'll move that.
Thanks, Chris. Right, Councillor Ross, thank you very much. All those in favour, raise your hand, please.
Any final questions or comments?
Okay.
Any final questions?
All right, are there any final questions or comments?
No.
We've done it pretty well, but that's all right. All right, all those in favour? Yep, all right, thank you, that's passed. Now, I'm just conscious we're up to the last couple of sections here, but picking up Councillor Ross's comments from the last minutes in the addition of the word skies, where, Gary, can we get can we do a motion without notice here, or?
Well, we did questions on the questions without notice on the previous agenda, so it's just that we do it here again, because we don't have motions or notice on the committee agenda.
All right,
So I would suggest that we put that up as part again, this questions without notice section.
all right, so can you just remind us, please, Councillor Ross, that of the,
Well, the recommendation was that the Dark Sky Committee recommend to council that the words "and skies" be added to acknowledgement of country, so that reads that upon their ancestral lands, waters and skies, for all council purposes, subject to necessary engagement with First Nations peoples. So that was what was recommended. So what we'll need to do is to formally now move and second that again and have that vote.
okay. Councillor Ross, you moving that way?
As it was my suggestion, first place.
Okay, all right, Chris, thank you.
No problem.
The seconder,
I
please.
believe Don did.
Don, thank you. Any comments or questions about that matter? Yes,
I am.
It's one of.
Oh, Victoria, go
Councillor
for it.
Councillor Victoria.
Victoria.
I would like to say, sorry, I wasn't there at the meeting when that decision went up as a motion, but I did since watch it on the Zoom. And I do feel that, like, you know, with that kind of stuff, it's very sensitive that when we're talking about First Nations history to land and country, it needs to really come from them. We shouldn't be the ones trying to put words in mouths of what we'd like them to say for the benefits of this committee. And I know Auntie Jenny and that, you know, that we protect everything, to be even questioned and consulted on such a matter of, like, can we add skies in there too, is kind of like, it's obviously directive with a motive for us, but it's not very sensitive engagement with First Nations people. And that's why I do think we should probably have First Nations people on this board to make sure this is directed in a correct cultural way. So we're not just, you know, wanting to engage in a superficial way, but an actual way where we know what are their dark sky stories. Are there any dark sky stories that they could share? And these are questions that should be thought of to, you know, engage with Auntie Jenny and the Aboriginal elders of our community, more so than thinking, can we add it in our welcome to country? You know, I think, you know, that kind of stuff is very sensitive and should always come from Aboriginal people and not us suggesting things for them as a directive. So I was a bit affronted by that motion that I found out I missed on, and that's my comment on it. And I think we really do need to get a board that is going to have fresh voices on there, but also Aboriginal voices if we are directing tourism to a dark skies that leads into Aboriginal culture, to know what is that culture that is of their dark skies here, and proper engagement with Aboriginal people to inquire more so than direct.
All right, thank you, Councillor.
I would only recommend this if it was agreed by the Indigenous community. If that's rejected, then fine. You know, we can leave it as is. But
look,
only with that concept.
The recommendation is very clear, you know, with that necessary engagement. And Councillor Hammond, in terms of your comment, there has been some preliminary conversations as part of the tourism precinct planning project, the cultural mapping work, and also with the Dark Sky business case for the Planetarium Observatory. So there's already been strong communications with groups around their connection to Dark Sky. So I think in terms of, you know, the conversation around acknowledgement. There, I think, has sort of been some preliminary engagement.
I guess
Also,
my point was really that it's up to them to engage those changes, not us to suggest changes as white Australians. That's just
Yeah,
my point.
ultimately, yeah, that's what I think Chris is inferring, is that this is not us asking, it's us, requesting.
Sure.
and also we actually have engaged with, so Fiona and myself were asked to present to the First Peoples of the River Murray and Mallee Region 2, extended myself and Fiona an invitation to actually discuss this at their board meeting a couple of weeks ago. They were actually quite receptive to it, and they thought it was nice to actually be acknowledged and to, they seemed very keen for it. So this is actually, we reached out to all the Aboriginal corporations, and they're the only ones that actually have engaged with us on it. So we're waiting. We've actually just gone back today seeking their confirmation if they are happy to endorse it and proceed with it. Other than that, which we've given the others until the 26th of February for their feedback. But other than that, it's, as far as Uncle Robert and Auntie Jenny go, they were really open to it and receptive. And
I mean, from my conversations with them, they were like, there's an idea, like you're saying, yes, open to it, but also that feeling of, just, white men telling us how we should do the thing, open to it in that way of, it's nice of you coming up with these concepts, but it's not actually coming from them just speaking for themselves in that space. And I think that is the point of a welcome or an acknowledgement to country. It's like, it's been very carefully worded quite often by Aboriginal communities as a whole. And I feel like us then trying to add and suggest things, even though they might be onto it and open to the idea of, and not saying they don't love the dark skies, but like when we talked to Auntie Jenny about her dark sky stories, she's sort of like, well, we didn't really have too much stories. We looked out at the dark skies, but it wasn't like there's some kind of cultural link that feels like they want to say they were protecting the skies. She was like, we didn't really protect skies. Like we were out there enjoying country. And so there is that kind of thing of like, the land and the rivers and the waters that we're trying to protect on land and country is hard enough to then say that they're also protecting of the skies. Like, it's, to them, it seems like a nice construct of like, oh yeah, dark skies. People asked us as whether we want to have, say the skies too, say everything, we protect it all. Like, they want to protect it all, but it's almost like it's just that it's come to them as a suggestion as opposed to them leading the way, which is what I think real reconciliation is all about of them leading the way of what is important to them about this Dark Sky Committee. What is it that they want to achieve, not like what we think, and will they be okay with this idea of we'd like to mention this in a way that supports us protecting the skies. I think the wording of it, I felt like, I don't think that is necessary. I think what's more necessary is we have Aboriginal people in these boards talking about all the issues to do with the tourism, of ecotourism and getting people away from the river and the jet skis and all of that. They would agree with you, wanting people to experience and appreciate country. They're all things they want to promote. So they're happy to go along with our promotion, and that's great. But I think they should be leading the way, not us suggesting things to them that we'd like them to include for a benefit to the committee. I think that is just, I don't know, I think it's culturally inappropriate.
Thanks, Councillor Hammond, appreciate it. All right, Councillor Ross.
I just did, when this was first proposed, upon ancestral lands and waters, yes, you can understand the upon lands and upon waters, but you can't really have upon skies, can you? That's not grammatically right. And also I did take time to look at other councils, 10 of them, as a matter of fact, at their acknowledgement of countries. 2 of them mentioned land. There was no water and definitely no skies in any of them. And actually, most of these acknowledgements of countries wasn't quite as long as Mid-Murray. So it's a bit of a,
Bit of a mouthful.
Because we're saying protection of skies, I'm assuming it's through light pollution protection. We can't protect this, as you pick up pick up Councillor Hammond, we can't protect the skies, that's a bit beyond our brief, I would have thought, but it's about protecting our vision to the skies, our connection to the skies. I guess, Chris, is that how you see it, or?
Well, firstly, I've never wanted to impose anything. And one of the things that we did right from the very beginning with the application was not make any sort of statements about Indigenous involvement or make assumptions about it,
Okay.
but to keep it as an open space for that to happen. I don't, and I don't want to impose this. I simply raised it as a suggestion because this is a council area that has a dark sky reserve, and that's makes it unique, and that's why it was the suggestion. That's all. And if the Indigenous community don't embrace it, I'm fine with that.
Very good.
So listening to both those conversations, and Councillor Hammond, if that's the case, is it better that we don't put this motion up, but those conversations still occur?
Personally,
Because they've already started.
Okay, is that a question to Councillor
It
Hammond?
is. Just waiting for a response.
Oh, for me, I just think, I do think maybe, stop them, stop those conversations. I feel like that kind of directive should just they're words that we say to acknowledge country, but the meaning behind it is personal, and it should be personal. And for the Dark Sky Committee, definitely say, if you want to, in your own acknowledgement at the start of your meetings about the skies, but I think from a perspective of making all of our council areas say that as part of our wording is it's more than just, us. I don't think it's up to us to make those suggestions. If any changing to the wording is to come from those acknowledgements and welcomes, I think it needs to really come directly from them before we even though it's a nice suggestion and from the greatest intentions, Chris, I just think it just comes off like we shouldn't. And to them, it's just a bunch of words. They really care about connecting to country, connection to land and rivers and waters is so important. That's why we often say rivers and waters for here, because we're trying to already say we're not just protecting land, but we've got to protect our waterways and our waters, right? So that's the main focus, I think, for a lot of the Ngarrindjeri and Ngangaraku community here is protecting our lands and our waters, and protecting that, and I think this idea of what they're focused on is protecting this and protecting the sky from pollution. I mean, how is that their responsibility? It's like we're just acknowledging their connection to country and their ancestral love for country. And I think that is what we should be saying in our acknowledgements, and they should be much more heartfelt than how we say them in government. They shouldn't just be words we say, and they should come with meaning. And I do think Dark Skies Committee, you could have it in your committee, that's how you want to say your acknowledgement. I think that's great. But then to create an idea that the rest of us all have to say something that's not necessarily coming forward from Aboriginal people as their directive of what they would like to know as our reconciliation directives. And I think if we had a RAP, we would know more about that. But I do think we need to really have more consultation with the Dark Skies and the Aboriginal people going forward, like with Landcare, to really create those strong bonds of being led as a committee by those elders in our community that want to showcase their culture and what it means to them. And it could be all different things. We just have to ask the questions more so, and I think that's they're happy to be engaged. They want to be engaged. I think the engagement process is really important with our elders and all of the groups here. So I think that is the key also for this committee moving forward, just to have, so then it's coming from their suggestion.
So Councillor Hammond, my question to you is, do you feel then that we don't move this motion full stop, but we continue the conversations that we've already started through the projects that we've mentioned?
I'd be happy with that if we adjusted the motion to.
Ros's motion. So what is Ros actually? I feel like I'm just coming in on Ros's
motion. It's not Ros's motion.
Oh, sorry, she's brought up that she wanted to rescind the motion that we had. I think our committee should be able to say, I think we stopped the conversations of trying to change it for the council.
We're not rescinding any motions yet. We're not rescinding anything.
No,
I think, I think we keep conversations, but I feel like, I don't know, I don't even know if it's sensitive to keep the conversations around this stuff when it's all not been come from their directive. That's what I'm saying. Like, we've got to let them be the ones that lead.
Hannah, that's my question to you now.
I think she said yes.
Yeah. I'm saying we should stop it. We should stop it until they come to us and say that's something they would like us to do.
Very good.
Very good. We got direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, very good. All right, we'll leave that one.
So we have a mover and a seconder.
No,
No.
no. Well, we don't.
No? Does anyone like that?
Well, we don't have. Well, put a vote on it. We probably lost.
Yeah, so I think you need to put it to the vote because you have a mover and a seconder.
Yeah. So yeah. So we do need to.
Given all that, we'll put it to a vote. Those in favour of that change? All right, two of the motion's lost. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, councillor Hammond. Thank you. Now, questions without notice. Are there any? Right, oh, we're good. All right, cheap round's good round. All right, confidential reports. We have nil, which means our next meeting is Tuesday, 26th of May, which is just, prior to going into caretaker mode for council. And who knows what November may bring. Councillor Chris, I like that. Sounds interesting. Very good. Well, thank you very much for your attendance today and appreciate the honest and positive conversation around the table. So it's been excellent. So I appreciate everyone's input. And wish you all well, and we'll see you in May. We'll close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
See you.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah.